Welcome to episode 6 of the Melly Show.
Oh my God.
See, this is why I should not be the one introducing the podcast.
No, continue.
Did you know, Melissa? I just recently found 90% of podcasts fail by the 5th episode.
Really?
Yeah. So we are now at least in the 90th or 10th percentile. What do you think about that, Melissa?
That's incredible.
Are you proud of yourself?
Are you proud of yourself?
Why do you think people quit?
Too much work.
Do you think it's too much work?
No, Jason does all the work.
Exactly. That's why I'm still here. He owes me some shorts, though, but I'm going to have to figure that out.
Oh, my gosh.
The shorts work. The few shorts that have been posted have been killing it, but we got so many more.
Mm.
And the ones with your face hit way faster than this mug.
I know.
So we got to make sure we fade from you to me. Trick them with the first frame, then get to me.
Oh, yeah, because you have all the information, right?
Yeah, I'm the star.
Because you're the star of the show.
I'm bait and switch.
That's awful.
I'm only half kidding.
Yeah. So anyway, today we're going to talk about, well, actually, first of all, how was your week?
Oh, my week was exciting. I got my first day in court.
Wait, that cannot be the first time you've been in court.
Well, the first time I got to argue in court.
But did you get to argue?
No. No. I was there on something for my aunt, and I got up there, and the other idiot talked, said all this shit she was supposed to say. It was ridiculous. I was all nervous at first, right? But the person I was arguing against was so stupid that as she droned, I literally sat down and relaxed and had like point for point. I was going to destroy her, right? Had this. Fantasized about winning a court case, like arguing a court case. And then the judge says, "Oh, your aunt's here on your behalf?" I said, "Yes, Your Honor." He goes, "Could I talk to her?" Sure. She walks up, savagely solves the whole thing. She gets done with him. And he looks at me and says, "Mr. Merrim, you don't have to say anything else." In my head, I said, "Yes, Your Honor." And I sat down because my 90-year-old aunt handled the whole thing all by herself.
Because she's savage.
Because she's savage. And that's how the Merrims roll.
Awesome. Anything else interesting for this week? Or is that it? Is that just the highlight of the year?
I got lots to say about why we're in court. Should we go there?
Probably not.
No.
Let's save it for another day.
All right.
So today, or actually, my week has been very interesting. Well, I got to spend Tuesday with your aunt. So we just literally spent the day shopping. It was so much fun.
She called me and said how much fun she had.
Yeah, she's hilarious. We met just some of the nicest people when we were shopping. And there was this one Arabic woman. And I was just talking to her. I was like, "Oh, yeah, like my aunt's Chaldean. Like I'm 25%. And we were just talking because I don't even remember why we like got on that topic. And she's like, "Oh, really? Does she speak Arabic?" And I thought she did because we were talking about it the other day. But I guess she speaks.
Yeah.
What do they call it?
Arabic, which is Chaldean.
So Arabic is not Arabic?
No, Arabic is different than
Armenian, isn't it?
No, Arabic.
Okay, whatever.
Or Aramaic, actually. I'm sorry. Aramaic.
I was going to say it's Armenian, Aramaic.
I don't know if it's Armenian, but it's they're from the Assyrians, was the original race before the Chaldeans. So,
yeah, but
like
she was just so sweet, and she thought that me and Kathy were just adorable. And she's like, "Oh, your grandma's so sweet." I was like, "I wish she was my grandma. I've adopted her as so."
Oh, she's awesome. She had such a good time.
Yeah, it was
she
good.
She can hang. For 90 years old, she can outpace everyone.
Yeah, we walked a lot that day, and she called me the next day, and she's like, "You must have went home and went right to sleep because I slept in, and I was so tired." And I was like, "I sure did."
When we showed up to put her shed up, when Pete and Jason put the shed together, and who else helped him? Steve. Those bricks that we brought, she was trying to carry the bricks out of the truck.
Shocker.
And she's like, "I can do it." And I'm like, "I know you can, but I'm not going to let you."
You shouldn't.
Yeah, but you shouldn't. She's awesome.
Yeah. So yeah, my week was good. Your week was good. But today I actually want to talk about like some of the stuff you went through when you were building your businesses, especially in the early years? Because you've mentioned you have a lot of really cool and interesting stories of just like random stuff that you had to deal with. And it wasn't like you ever expected those things to come up. So I guess my question is, what is like one of the biggest things that you had to deal with in the earlier days of starting your business?
First of all, we were really broke a lot.
How come?
It just was hard. You know, I didn't learn how to market till way later, right? Back then, marketing was, you kind of did something, somebody would recommend you. A lot of times you start with family, right? Because we had, being Chaldean, we have all the people at the stores and things like that. And then you would get momentum that way.
Mhm.
But really the biggest challenge, and it happens even today, is people don't value themselves enough to charge enough. They don't plan. Here's a good example. You're so desperate to get a job, you give a really low price.
So was that you in your early
Yeah,
days?
yeah. Didn't give the right price, whether it was on accident or you just were desperate for work, right? So then you start that job, and then another job actually peaks. So you close another job, right? And maybe not for the right amount. So next thing you know, you're doing a whole lot of jobs for not enough money. And then you can't really do the jobs well because you spread yourself thin, because if you don't start taking deposits or start engaging these projects, you can't pay your bills, right? So you get in a situation where you're doing a lot of work, and the average dollars are nothing.
Mm.
And so your mother and I got to the point, and it was sometimes times of the year early on, because again, marketing was different then. It was yellow pages, and even the time of the year was even more significant. So when things were slow, especially when I had you guys, I said I would rather do nothing and spend time with the kids instead of working for no money. Does that make sense? Because I'd
Yeah.
be busier, not be able to take care of you guys or hang out with the kids and Lisa. But I would just be doing a whole lot of work and not making anything. So we learned that lesson. It was a hard lesson to learn, but we did learn that lesson. Another funny point is I remember your mom saying, I could last all week on $20. She'd have $20 and I think she even smoked then. She'd get her cigarettes and everything, and she could last a whole week on $20. And she says, after I met you, $100 meant nothing. She was like, it was just, we would burn through money. So,
Well, how come? Because you were a spender and she wasn't?
it's not so much a spender, it's a different scale. There's giant companies that are having the same problem I just described in a giant machine, right? It could be doing $1 billion a year, but not keeping any money, right? But yet there's tons of money going through their hands and big expenditures and costs and things you buy. Or you can be just one person and only be making, you can only maybe gross, say, $80,000 a year, but you could be keeping 40. You could be making more money than a guy running a company. In fact, that happens a lot.
So how did you shift from in the beginning not marketing well enough and not essentially valuing yourself appropriately? How did you make the shift?
I would go back to what Brian Murray used to say, and sometimes you have to sell the value of the job, not the cost, right? Because a lot of times when you just say, well, it should be this part, these parts, this labor, and it should go this way, there's always a situation where it could possibly go wrong. In fact, most of the time, the cost of the parts could be more, or something could be unexpected to run into and it take more time. So you can never really just do parts and material in time. You have to over time average things that could go wrong and know there's a 40%, 50%, 100% buffer, right? That's one way to do it. The other way to do it is going, yeah, I'm building a website for this guy, and when it's done, he'll be able to generate hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars. So even though I could probably build it for X amount of dollars, it is worth X times 5. And he wins and I win. He still has a huge return on investment, so there's no harm there. And I'm not only able to charge more for the job, but I can focus on it and finish and get all the details, right? Because especially in the web business, it's never just a hard stop. There's often more things to do, more
Right.
questions, more. So it also puts you in a better position to service the customer. So it's healthy for both sides to charge more sometimes.
How long did it take you to figure that out?
I would say I don't know. I mean, I technically ran a business for a lot of years, even before um, your mom and I did the IT stuff. I had a little alarm company. I never even told you about that. I used to run wire alarm systems. Brian Murray helped show me how to do that. And I was terrible at that then. I mean, I never made any money. It was so bad.
Well, what'd you learn doing that?
That's a sucky business to have.
That's it.
Yeah, I mean, every house to run wire, there was no wireless.
Yeah.
You have to drill. Do you know what? Take a finished house and figure out how to go from the basement up the wall into the corner where the roof comes together, across, and then pop out and put a sensor there. You know?
Wow.
Oh, it's Kathy. Hey, beautiful. How are you? Good, good. Is everything okay? And- awesome. Oh, good. Yeah. Yeah, we'll do that. But everything's okay. She's not bothering you. Okay. All right. Awesome. All right. All right. Well, let me know if something happens. I'll check on you later.
Nicole's not there.
I love you too. Bye bye.
Looks like no one's home.
She's 90. Yeah, you hear her? She's amazing.
No, she golfs like 3 times a week. She bowls like on the off season of golfing, and then we literally walked across like all around 12 Oaks, and I mean, she's just like quick as a whip, and she's hilarious. I can make like a quick quip or a witty joke or something, and she like gets it and will come back with her own, which is just like crazy for any grandma or even sometimes people's immediate like parents, when they're younger, sometimes like, you know.
And she's like,
Oh, she's on it. She's so funny.
No, she is.
I love her so much.
But she's checking in because she's having somebody harass her. So we're just making sure she's okay. So sorry for taking the call at the podcast.
Important. Yeah, it looks like she's not even home, Nicole, so it's fine. But so you learn that you just hate.
Yeah, there's just some. I mean,
because it wasn't wireless, you had to actually go through.
There's a lot more work doing wired alarm systems. Now you just stick the sensors where they go and turn the thing on. There's no drilling. So, but back then we would get a good amount of money for it. But again, I wasn't able to quote properly and stuff. So, a few jobs paid well, but it was just.
So did you learn how to quote anything in that job?
Yeah, you get better.
Because I firmly believe as long as you learn something, there's no possible way. Like you can't fail. You can't fail if you learn. So what did you? What were your takeaways from that? Even though it wasn't
the biggest thing is how to price properly and be confident in how much money you're asking for.
Yeah.
And it's hard to get people to work too, right? So everybody else gets paid before you. That's what happens when you're not doing it well, So that's why I like systems now. I mean, if you don't have a system, it's not really a business. It's just a job you can't quit that pays you like $1 an hour. Like, and that's a real true thing. So I kind of learned, those things, and I gravitated towards business models that allowed me to leverage my time, be exponential. Duplicating yourself in one way or another is.
Well, how did that appear in the website developing company? How did you do that?
Well, I'll tell you. Back when we used to write point of sale software. Your mom actually wrote point of sale software before it was super prevalent.
Well, that doesn't mean much to me.
All right, so point of sale is you go up to the counter and you buy something. They got those computer screens.
Yeah.
Like at what's the clothing store you guys always
Anywhere?
go to? Yeah, anywhere. And you could scan the items, you can look things up, and the checkout and the little printer. We would write software that did that, and that was new. It used to be just cash registers, but those would have inventory systems, so we'd have better data. And we did okay with it, but it was really hard to take care of customers because, like I said in the other podcast, you'd have to have a smart person show up. That was back when people actually learned the craft and were good at it, and there was a reason to, right? Because if they couldn't figure it out, they'd have to call me on the phone. So we'd be on the phone walking them through everything, and it was horrible, right? And it was very tough. So we did okay. We made money. We always updated it, blah, 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 blah. But you'd have to have a lot of people. When I started doing web work, I figured out that you're viewing the item where you're at over the internet, but we're all in one room, me or anybody that's working on it. So all the changes were done on the server. So we didn't necessarily have to go away to fix a problem. We could fix it right here. So if there's 10 people in the room, they're all as smart as the smartest guy in the room. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So they would feed off each other, learn from each other, and the IQ of the room, when it comes to what we were fixing, or the knowledge of the room got very high quickly, right? Like when Eric learned how to do customer service, I used to stand behind him. That would help him. And the first thing he did is, he was a construction guy, and he wasn't very confident. It was just after he broke his back, right? So this guy was a hot mess. And so he'd be on the phone, he'd go, drove me nuts. So I would stand behind him and poke him every time he'd say, poke him, flick his ear, pissed him off. And he'd be swinging at me like he'd try to punch me, but I would just punish him every time. And he learned, he's tremendous on the phone now if you hear him. But that's how he learned to, have a good conversation.
So you replicated yourself by finding just people who are willing to show up, and you put them in the same room as you, and you basically built them up to what you wanted them to be.
But also put a consistent pathway so they all had to do the same things for the same process and could learn it and teach it. And then we knew what was expected. So if something went wrong, like, well, did you do step B? Well, no, I skipped that. Why? Well, I assumed. Yeah, that doesn't work. So you have to double check. So as long as they could follow the process.
I like to say that if you ever assume something, it makes an ass out of you and me.
That's right.
It's literally assume.
Yeah, exactly. So that happens. And give you a good example of an assumption. The guy across the street that is a lawnmower guy, works on small engines, very good at it. I had a mower, our zero-turn mower, and he did a tune-up. And after the tune-up, he goes, I think this thing blew a cylinder. I'm like, well, it blew a cylinder. It's like brand new. He goes, well, that's what I was thinking, but no matter what I do, it will not fire on this cylinder. And I said, that's weird. So he goes, it won't even start. He goes, if I pull the plug out of this one cylinder, it will run on one cylinder, but as soon as I put the plug in, it won't. And and me being an electrical guy, I'm like, there's no way it's blown up. So I'm over there standing over him, and he's like, I got brand new plugs. I checked the coil. I checked this. I checked the compression. Every single thing. There's only fuel and spark, right, in compression. There's literally, and it's such a new mower that all the rest is handled electronically, right? So there's not other older parts. So I said, if there's a fault somewhere in your ignition system, and you test the spark with the plug out in the plain air, you'll see the spark. But when you put it under compression, if there's a weak spot somewhere else, it won't spark where the plug is at. It could spark or gap somewhere else in the system. And he being a great mechanic, but not necessarily electrical engineer type mentality, he was like, well, whatever, I guess. He goes, but the brand new plugs, I got spark. So I kept narrowing it down to the coil. And so what it ended up being, long story short, is at the end of the day, I just kept saying, it's either spark or fuel. So we finally narrowed it down. And so I said, swap out the plugs. He's like, it's a brand new plug. I said, I don't care. I said, something's broken. It's either the coil. And sure enough, he puts an old plug in, runs perfect. And here's a guy that's been doing this for his whole life because he's never seen a spark plug fail, right? If you've never seen one fail, it's really hard for your mind. It's not really his fault. You just don't see it happen. So why would you swap that one component out when it was brand new if he's never seen a bad spark plug in his life? But that's why when you have processes and procedures, and that is still going to be a potential failure point, your procedure would still say, swap out the plug. Does that make sense? But he spent 2 days on that. And it pissed him off when I had the answer too, right? But I was thinking in a whole different realm. I'm not a mechanic. I'm not a small engine mechanic. So I was but I definitely understood fuel, spark, compression. Like there's not a whole lot to it. And I even got on Grok and I'm like, what could it be? And Grok actually said almost verbatim, with the newer engines, there's not a lot to check. And it pretty much said fuel, spark, compression. It was just interesting. So when it comes to business processes, that's the kind of things that happen. You have these weird things that happen, and you have to make sure that you have a solid process that will check in.
Well, that's why it's good to have people who specialize in different areas within your business. If you just have a bunch of people who are exactly the same, then you allow inefficiencies to creep in because you're just not going to see them.
Right.
But when there's so many different people who are different minded, then as long as you can work well together, which it can be difficult if you have different personalities, that's where you really can create a very efficient, well-fueled machine. And also, if you just have a bunch of people who do the same exact thing, there's going to be something that falls through the crack. That's something like I do with my business. I know my strengths and weaknesses, and I hire out everything because I know that somebody else can do it way faster and better than I can. And I'd rather piecemeal 10 people into like a 40-hour work week than one 40-hour person who has to do all of these different processes, because no one can possibly be 100% perfect at everything all the time.
Well, that's a good point. And actually, you just sparked a thought. In the website processes, we used to have a project management software, and I had these rules. Some of them were for humans, and some of them were for processes. But it was a 4-10, and like I think it was a 20-day rule. So every customer had to be touched every 4 days. And my guys would say, "But what if they owe me something, and I'm waiting?" I said, "I don't care." I said, "You remind them politely. Listen, I'm still waiting on that logo, so we can go to the next step." And
Would you make them wait 4 days though?
well, if the customer already said, "Yeah, I'll get that to you," we don't badger them. It was actually 1-4-10. 1 day if there was something actionable we could do.
Okay.
4 just to touch base, because a lot of times in website development, there's gaps of time that either we're
They
working
don't
or they're
really
working.
hear from you.
Right.
There's no reason to talk to them.
Right. So I said, I don't care if you end up calling them up and asking how the weather is and saying, "How are you doing?" I want them to hear from you.
Yeah.
Because here's the trap that you run into. I'm a busy guy. You're busy with your business. If someone says, "Yeah, I'll do that for you, just send me this," and then I wait like a month, and then you call me up and say, "Shane, I thought you were going to get this done for me," and I'll say, "But Melissa, you owe me that one logo," and wouldn't you be pissed? Like, you
Yeah.
could have at least reminded me, right? So I factored that out in our and what was cool about it was a lot of people knew it was their fault, but they felt like they just wanted to blame someone, right? They're pissed. So sometimes, because my people would follow the rules, so the guy would call me up. Still isn't done. It's been 6 months, and that is not uncommon for websites actually back then. And I said, "Okay," and I look, and they logged every time they talked to the customer, because I also messaged them. I said, "Everything you do on the phone, you back up with the message," right? Which brings me to another point I'll tell you that I like too. So I'd say, "Well, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, we're doing our best. Every 4 to 5 days, someone has reached out to you and they let you know they need these things. We don't want to be obnoxious about it, but I mean, every 4 days is pretty aggressive." And generally, it was a boss, and their underlings are the ones communicating with our team. That's
Yeah.
generally where that happened. And they're like, "Ooh." So guess what happens when they hang up the phone? The rage shifts right to somebody else. And so it was, if we knew there'd be a long gap, I'd let them go to 10. If the guy says, "Yeah, it's going to be like 2 weeks, and that's where this vendor is giving me these parts," or something, then of course I'd let them do that, but they'd have to notate why. And anytime we had an issue, it was because they violated that process. Almost every single time.
That's smart.
Yeah. And all I'd have to do is pull up a project and look at the last communications, and I could know exactly where the project's at, right? Because sometimes people would call me out of the blue and say, "What's going on?" I'm like, "Hold on." I would pull it up and do it. Another thing I learned from Pete Cristiano, he says, somebody calls you up pissed or something happens, and you debate it out. And so say we're all done, and you're like, "Yeah, you're right. You're right. I was pissed off. I know I understand, blah, 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 blah," right? But you kind of lose face, right? Because now you got to go back to whoever's on your side and say, "Yeah, I fucked up. This is actually what happened." So what Pete said is, he says, whatever you do, make sure you send them an email that outlines the understanding of what you talked about, and give them a chance to verify that. So it's, "Hey, you called me up, you're mad about this. We figured out this, this, and this, and we agreed on this. Let me know if I have anything wrong." And even a non-response is beneficial to you. So when, and I'll give you a great example of this. Remember when Amo from Everest said was trying to get a dado from headquarters for free? I guess they had some other time, and then they couldn't give it to him.
Yeah.
So I knew they weren't going to be able to give it to him because the scheduling and cost was right after COVID, and the shipping was expensive. It was just not possible at the time for them financially to give it to him. Your mom and you guys had a concert the day of that tournament, but I kind of was like, "Listen, if you need us, I can have Lisa cancel the tournament. We can." And for whatever reason, he was mad at me about something. Now we know why, but back then I didn't understand what his problem was. And I didn't really care if we did the tournament. I didn't really care if we got the dado free, but I just didn't want him to get stuck, right?
Yeah.
So we go down the whole chain of items, and then finally there's like 1 week left, and I'm going, "Listen, I need to know the answer. I'm not going to have my wife cancel this concert." And I go, "You can use it or not, but just give me an answer." So he kind of flames out, and doesn't do it, and ends up using another vendor. Well, I knew I was going to be at that tournament, right? And so what I did is I wrote him an email and said, "Hey, just to clarify everything, You want a free dado. It didn't work out. This is our, our interactions, what happened. And it kind of laid out the ugly transactions of it, but it was clearly stated I was trying to help the guy. And I said, let me know if you see it any other way. He literally replied and said, that's exactly how it went. Right. So now what I did was when I was at his tournament, okay, I knew I'd be asked what was going on. And I knew if I said,
Well, this is relevant because he was talking crap behind your
he was
back.
talking shit, right?
And he was telling other people that you screwed him out.
Right.
And so because you go
and
ahead.
they make a lot of assumptions, right?
Yeah.
Anyways, and people generally make, they like drama. So what I did was I knew if I tried to explain the story, it would sound like I was putting him in a bad light instead of going over the facts.
Right.
So what I did every time I was asked, I pulled up the email. I said, listen, I don't want to like say it in a certain way that looks like.
He said, just read it for
right.
yourself.
I said, so here's an acknowledged email from him. So what he probably may or may not have realized is every time somebody asked, instead of it looking like I was throwing shade, because I really didn't want to escalate the whole thing, I just literally showed the email.
You can make your own decision,
yeah,
but
I mean,
this is the fact,
but this is what happened.
I have. So,
and like 4 or 5 people looked at it, and that was it. The best part of that was the guy that he had run the dado is a bit of a crook, and he owed your mom like $2,000 for like almost a year and a half for some foot gear that she had shipped him, and he, had all these excuses why he wouldn't pay. Then he just stopped returning calls and this and that. I had a feeling that's who was going to do it, right? So what I did is I just happened to make a call to him. Didn't say a word. Oh, I'm going to see you Friday. I'm going to send you your $2,000. It's like perfect. So not only did I not have to run the tournament because that's why I got to leave early. Your mom and you guys went to the concert. I got paid for something I never would have got paid for in my life. So I got $2,000 that was gone. So in all his, anger, I made out with the same amount of money I would have made at the tournament anyways. And the thing is, I was running the dado for the friend price that we do in the States. So it's not like literally True Score told him he's running it to you for what it would cost me to ship it one way. And yet he didn't want it. So anyway, that's just it's two kind of things in one. But
yeah.
So that's just an example of communicating. So he had no idea when he replied what that was for, but I just and he could have replied and said, no, this is what I thought. This is what I thought. And then I would have taken that and still shown the context, right?
Well, these things take a lot of work too. Thinking about, hey, we do have to make these calls because you're preventing a future problem, or even just building rapport. Every time you touch a client, even if it's not for a purpose for business, it's building a connection, which will last you longer. I'm sure you've had long-time clients because you are good at communicating, and there can be down times, and they still trust that you're doing your work because you communicate, even by an email. Right. And not everything's going to go perfectly all the time. So people have to learn how to handle those kind of situations gracefully. And also admit where you're wrong, and then be able to communicate, here's what we're going to do going forward.
Right.
And then sometimes people, after they're in the moment, they agree to something and then they actually change their mind. And as opposed to just saying like, hey, I changed my mind, they'll turn around and just accuse you of something else. So that's kind of what happened. People do that all the time.
In those scenarios, I say, listen, it's not a matter of fault. What happened, and whatever happened wasn't really a fault thing. It was a situational thing. We didn't expect these things. So let's just make sure that doesn't happen again, and we'll move forward. And that's generally how I handle that. I have people that say, reveal, I pay you more than other people, but I just keep using you because I always answer the phone. They know I'm honest. Those type of, actually, your brother gets that too. He had a pool guy say, you're a lot more than the other guys, but he just loves his work. He loves dealing with them. So, and Peter was like, oh, cool. And Peter probably wouldn't do it for less because, again, we taught him early. All you guys, you have a lot more confidence. You remember, I came from nothing and kind of had to learn it all. We at least gave you some guidelines, and you do have some self-value earlier than I did, So it's kind of a cool thing.
It took you a long time to learn, though. But thankfully, you had a lot of business owners around you. So something, actually, someone told me today that they really like our podcast and like some of the questions that we ask each other, and then how I can be younger and have business-minded questions.
Right.
And it's just because I was raised like that. And even though your dad, I don't think he was a business owner, but he
wasn't good at it.
But you had a group of people when you were young. So sure, you didn't know a lot, and you taught us a lot growing up, but it's just about who you surround yourself with. Cause really that's who you're going to most likely end up being, is the people that you're around.
That's true.
They say I think it's the 5 people that you spend the most time with. If you want to be somewhere and you feel like you're not getting there, look at who those 5 people are.
100%.
And that's probably why. Or you can always just cut back. You don't always have to cut people off. Just spend less time with the people you don't necessarily want to be like. And it can suck because it can be family sometimes.
Yeah.
Not really in our case. Our family's all amazing.
Right,
I don't think there's one person I wouldn't want to hang out with, but
But again, everybody's got their own theme, and it's not necessarily our theme, right? Which is fine. But we just
also everyone has a strength and a weakness. So as long as like there's certain weaknesses I have and I have it in common with other people, and I try to just not pick up more of the weakness traits and focus on the strengths that I can pull from them. And it's a mindset thing.
Yeah, I mean, you've learned a lot from Mom and I. And listen, we run businesses together, which is hard. We're married, which is hard. We do, it's all hard. And you guys see us.
You have an old woman who you take care of full time. You have 4 kids that live in your house.
Yeah.
Could it get any harder?
And, but your mom's obviously amazing. But you see us argue but resolve, or you see business things go wrong and get resolved. You see us have a lot of difficulties and still handle it and not melt, right? I mean, we could be in bad moods sometimes. I'm sure her and I have both yelled once or twice when we probably shouldn't have. But I think that's also a skill set, is not letting the stress completely destroy everything around you.
It's hard.
Yeah.
It can be really difficult. Tell me something else. I know that it was something specific about like a bank or something, but I don't really know how it applies to your business at all. So I can't ask you a fun question
I've
to
got
get there.
two bank lessons.
But these are like, I don't even know. Like, were they just tough times that you went through?
No.
Or how did it even happen?
One was one of the best times of our life.
Really?
So there was this, Audible and all those things where you play books on tape.
Mm-hmm.
Well, before that, the first company that had a rental system was called Talking Book World, that originated in Southfield. It was owned by a couple guys, Orthodox Jews, and I still do business with. Well, we don't do it much right now, but I've done hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not $1 million, in business with these guys. And I'm one of the few non-Jewish guys that they would trust with stuff, right? So there was a couple of them, and they had where you could pay a monthly fee, and you could go get like 2 or 3 books on tape. Uncle Tom used to always get them. In fact, he was using them before I met the guys. And you take them, and then you'd listen to them, and then you'd take those 3 back, you get 3 more.
So like Blockbuster for books on tape.
Kind of like that. But they did it before even Blockbuster did it, right?
Okay.
Ironically, Blockbuster was invented by Chaldeans. That was started.
No.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Anyways, so they wanted to build a website. So we partnered. Another bad idea, because nobody was using their credit card online. It was that early. So they could look at them, and your mom wrote the whole site. And we had this partnership, and we got like $20 one month and like $18. Like, there was no money, right? And the site was getting better and better, though. People were starting to kind of talk about using their credit cards online. So we were, doing new things, but there was no revenue from this. Just as a few bucks rolled in, this is by now we're living in the Byron house, right? They're going to take the company public. They had to open up a bunch of stores, and they were going to go public. Well, to go public, the however it works, the board, the shareholders, I don't really know how it works even now, but they have to own the website. So they said, well, we want to buy the website from you. Okay. How much do you want? Talk to your mom, and I'm like, give me $100,000. Guys, this is like 30 years ago, and it was a site making no money. We were broke. We were, we used a credit card to get married. Like we financed our wedding, right? But so it's $100,000. Great. Writes a check for $100,000. We had about, I think she started writing about, I think we had about $40,000 worth of debt at the time, 40, 45, something like that, which is a lot for back then for just a couple, right? And so the thing back then was you have to wait for like 2 weeks for a check to clear. 100%, you wait 2 weeks, that check is not bouncing. Or so we thought. So we let it sit there because we had money. We just, weren't in a rush to spend it, but we were excited about paying off debt. So like 3 weeks in, she starts writing. She writes about $40,000 or $50,000 worth of checks. Bank calls me up. Mr. Merrim, these checks are bouncing that you're writing. I'm like, how is that? That's the biggest check I've ever put in my bank in my life. Well, that check bounced. So my question is, how does a check that sat there for almost 3 weeks bounce? Well, we're working it out, Mr. Merrim. However, we're manually approving the checks. I couldn't believe it. I have never had a bank treat me well. But because I swear, but we had done enough business and were credible enough, they actually cared about our business. because we did big transactions. We were doing $100,000 website, $8,000 website, but we weren't saving a lot of money. It was just, it was paying things off and this and that. So I got a hold of Richard. Simtob was the guy I just recalled that was there. And I'm like, what's going on? He goes, yeah, it was a 2-signature check. I'm really sorry. I didn't realize it when I signed it. We're getting the other signature. We talked to your bank. Ends up they were communicating.
Yeah.
And they actually approved, and I did not bounce one check. They actually manually approved the checks and didn't let them bounce. It was the first time I ever felt valued by a bank. And we tried never to leave that bank. It was National City at the time, and that turned into PNC, right?
Oh, wow.
And then PNC debanked us. Did you hear how Trump was talking about how when Biden went after him, how they could borrow $1 billion, and then all the banks told them they'd take all their money out and get rid of it, and they just spread their money along these little banks, and they literally made it impossible to even store their money at a bank. It's called debanking. Turns out they can do it without explanation. They can just say, "We're no longer letting you bank with us." Right?
Basically, if you need cash, they won't give it to you.
No, they won't. They won't let you use their bank. They can just say, "Take your money out, leave."
Oh.
So that's called debanking. Right?
How did that happen?
Well, that's a good point. So when the war started, the Russians that we would
Well,
do
so
business
what time frame is this?
with? The debanking was recent. This was right here when the war against Ukraine happened, between Russia and Ukraine. So,
but the first story one was
the first story is way back before you were born, or you might have been
when you were in like your mid-20s.
Yeah.
So like a century ago. No,
probably 20, probably just before. Yeah.
Okay.
A long time ago. So we had a Russian team for years.
Yeah.
And we would just wire the money. Well, when the war started, they kept saying they would sanction banks to not be able to send money. So I would just ask the bank, are we sanctioned or can I send money? No, you can send money. So I'd send the money. And I always ask in writing because I didn't want to get in trouble for doing something wrong. So if one day I sent like $3,000 over there.
Russia.
Yeah. Sent $3,000 over there and they took it. They still have it to this day. We still have to do some paperwork to get the $3,000 back. So they're like, yeah, that's sanctioned. I literally asked you. You said to wire it. And then when I asked why I didn't make it, you said it was going. It was just a glitch. So they had no idea what they were doing. But ultimately, they took the money. Right? So whatever. So I started using Bitcoin. Right? So which I researched it. As long as you use a U.S., same thing, a U.S. Bitcoin organization that can track taxes and all those things, you're okay because they could always reject it or whatever. And I did some research and they said, no, as long as you're following the laws, you're good. So I was taking money at PNC out of a business because I couldn't get the Bitcoin into use a business account for the Bitcoin. It had to be a personal account. So I had to go from the business account to a personal account to Bitcoin. So what happened was, long story short, they just said, listen, you got to go. And I said, well, why? This is why I'm not going to tell you. I said, but should know. He goes, we can do it for whatever reason. We're just not telling you. And this lady was cold. And I tried to appeal to her, and she's like, listen, I got in a lot of trouble once for saying it. I wish I could. I cannot tell you. I just can't. We have the right to refuse you for any reason whatsoever. You're a high risk. So now we're freaking out. Your mom's freaking out. I'm freaking out, especially your mom's freaking out. She's like, what could this be? What did we do wrong? What did you do? No idea. So long story short, we figured it out. I won't give up how I figured it out because someone finally told me, but it looked like I was money laundering. Like we were paying taxes on the money, right? That went from the business to the personal. We didn't even think not to. Like it was tax money because once it leaves a company, So, but they said that it wasn't that we were doing laundering. It was just that they said that the cost for the attorneys to defend or provide documentation to the government on a potential money laundering case is just not worth the risk. That's what it came down to. It wasn't like I was actually doing anything wrong. They're just like, when that happens, we just get rid of you so we don't have the government come in and ask for all this paperwork and tap our attorneys. Literally was what it came down to. Isn't that crazy?
Wow.
So, and again, nothing was wrong because we paid the appropriate taxes on the transfer. But because back then Bitcoin was even less popular and it felt like a blind spot in some way, they just pulled the trigger because they didn't know what could happen. The laws weren't real firm. That's what happened. So we got debanked.
Wow. I didn't even know that.
Yeah, they can just for any reason say bye-bye.
Well, I didn't know that you guys were debanked.
Yeah.
That's kind of crazy.
Yeah. True story.
So who do you bank with now? Is it just...
mostly Chase.
Oh, okay. And you don't have your Russian team anymore?
Unfortunately, no. The main guy, the smartest guy there, was in Belarus. And even though it's Russian controlled, somehow he was able to get a visa and go to Poland. So they moved to Poland. And so the guy with the guy in Russia, I mean, I had a lot of loyalty to him. I used him for a lot of years.
I mean, they came and stayed at our house. I
Yeah,
remember
yeah.
going to Greenfield Village with their kids.
Right.
They didn't speak English, but we figured it out.
It was a fun
They were
time.
so cute. I loved them. They were fun.
Well, what I did was I could have just taken him. It was his best resource too. I made a lot of money with this guy. So I actually paid him. I bought the rights to take him to my company by giving him like what I did is the amount of money that I paid the guy for X amount of time, I added X amount of dollars per hour, and I paid to Andy in return for him allowing. And not that he could stop it. You understand? He couldn't stop him.
Wait, I don't understand that. Why would
I took
you
his
do
best
that?
guy. His best guy no longer worked for him.
Oh, I didn't know Andy ran a team like that.
Yeah, he had a whole lot of resources. So it hurt him for me to take him. But at the same time, I was his biggest customer as well. So I paid a penalty or I paid a fee that made it worth
The
Sergey
guy
coming
in
over. Yeah,
the guy
Sergey
in
coming
Poland,
over.
though.
Right, that moved to Poland. Right. So
But Andy didn't move to Poland.
No.
Okay.
His family's still there. He couldn't leave. You can't leave Russia right now. You know, they don't let you.
Oh.
So even a long time ago, when everything was fine, a different Sergey that was on the team was just going to come visit. And we're going to do some stuff because he didn't have enough family. They wouldn't let him leave Russia. They figured he was going to defect. They just said, no, you're a risk.
Wait, so how did Andy get to come?
He has a family and a business, and so it's.
He had enough ties to Russia that they let him come and see us.
Yeah, because the other guy was in his 20s. He was much older. He had the whole family there. He had a residence there. This kid had an apartment.
That's actually crazy. I had no idea.
Yeah, it's different. Other countries are different. People don't realize the freedoms that we have. You know, they all want to complain. You know,
but most of your help is from other countries. However, you've had them for like years and years.
People that work for us always end up working.
Like when I was in your lab, like that's how long ago that they've been working
That's
with
correct.
you. So
That's correct. Decades people work for us.
So how many employees do your businesses have? I don't even know.
We don't really have many employees. Me and your mom, everybody's a contractor.
So how many contractors do you work
Storm
with?
has employees.
Well, how many contractors do you work with like your website developing companies?
Right now, 1, 2, 3, 4. I only have 4.
And they all do like.
And Kevin's a full-time guy. He's still a contractor, but he's in the States.
Okay.
I mean, they're all full-time, but he's the guy that runs everything.
So they all do other things too, though. You're not their
They're
only
legally able
employer?
to. Yeah. They run. It's beneficial to have an LLC and then be a contractor if you do it right.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. I have a couple 1099 employees too, so it's nice. Especially because I don't really care when they do their work. So
Right. What's a double-edged sword?
as long as they do their work eventually.
Some people agree to be a contractor because they take home more money, but they forget to pay their taxes.
Yeah.
And what they've done is they've made the companies villains. So it's our fault because they feel like we encourage them to be contractors so we don't have to deal with the taxes. And then when they can't handle their personal business, they've been coming back. They were for a long time coming back into companies. They still can. It's almost a political thing. It depends on even the current political climate. When it's a liberal climate, then a good story. Your aunt with the vet clinic. She had a doctor who, by definition on their business card, was a relief doctor. That means if you need them for one day while you're out of the office, you pay them for one day, right? This doctor did relief work for like 10 clinics as a relief doctor. Their literal business model was that. And then filed an appointment for like all these different clinics for working a few times. And they actually approved it. Kathy had to spend like $3,000 and like 4 or 5 visits to the court to undo it.
Wow.
But that's because we had a liberal, it all filters down. If you have a liberal at the top, it all filters down and the money flows different. And then when they tighten it up and they're more conservative, then it takes some time, but it filters down. So what happens at the local level does reflect the current climate.
Yeah. Unemployment is basically another way to destroy small businesses.
Yeah, it's tough.
It sucks.
It's tough. And if you have someone who's with you for a long time, you're more than happy to pay the unemployment. Like nobody's upset about that. Nobody wants to hurt somebody that's helped them out for years and years.
Yeah, but not everyone leaves well or lets people go well.
Right. I'll tell you a funny story. If I left to go hunting, almost every time I came back, your mom would fire someone.
Well, that's because they didn't listen to her.
Yeah, they treated her like shit, and she said, "You're gone." I
And
had a
she's probably
sales
been
guy.
telling you. I know she would tell you that person needs to go, and you'd be like, "Oh, they're doing their job," blah blah blah. And then you would leave, and then she'd be like, "They said the wrong thing at the wrong time," and she was so right when
She just canned them.
when she told you, you're like, "Yeah, I would have fired him too."
Yeah, I mean, I'm not arguing with her. It's her company. She can do what the hell she wants. I mean,
Actually, I do remember that. I forgot about that,
oh
but like
yeah,
growing
your
up,
mom's
I remember
savage.
hearing
People
about
that don't
it.
think that Lisa is
Well, because she's so soft spoken,
right,
and
well,
you
she's got a
feel
backbone.
like she
Yeah.
is a pushover, and she's absolutely not. But she just answers with silence.
Yeah.
So she won't tell you like you're being rude. She'll just be like, "See ya.
Yep.
I'll never actually see you again."
Started arguing with her. She's like, "How about you just get your shit and leave?" That was it.
I don't want to see you ever again.
Honey, you having a good time in your house? Yeah. Got some good news and some bad news. She told me some good news, and she's like, "Bad news is I canned them." Okay.
What's one person like? Tell me one of the stories, like specifically.
The kid's
Can you
name
think
was
of anything?
Noor, and he, two of them. One was Atif, one was Noor. Noor was this young, just arrogant Chaldean kid, right? Just the typical. We used to make jokes. Nobody knows the jokes now, but you know, the Chaldean kids would have the rich parents who run the stores, and the kids weren't nearly the same level of work ethic, and they'd all have Trans Ams, right? So we used to joke and go, Trans Am, I have Trans Am, you know, that all these punks, and they'd be the kids that were disruptive in school, and you know, and I'm telling you, this is my race, so I'm making fun of my own race. They're just assholes, you know.
Probably would have been you if you had money.
Yeah, maybe, who knows? But so now he's going to start working. He's working for me. Well, he didn't give me that shit, right? Because if he started running his mouth, I just told him shut up and sit down, right? But they're a little bit, you know, the Chaldeans and a lot of Middle Eastern cultures act like the women don't matter, right? Their opinion doesn't matter. It's just a suggestion. Well, Lisa taught him that it's not a suggestion. And she canned him because he was just being arrogant. And she's like, no, that's not what's going to go on. To get your shit, get out of here. What? I mean, he probably argued with her. He probably couldn't believe, like, didn't even believe her when he was fired. He probably figured he had to talk to me, you know?
Yeah.
And when they called me, sometimes they would call me like, you fucked up, man.
I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, I don't know what to tell you. It's hilarious.
Oh,
At least 3
gosh.
times. I can't name them all. Your mom could probably name everyone, but at least 3
Oh, I'm
times.
sure. I know.
Always when I
it.
left.
Yeah.
It was almost always when I went to
Well,
Peely
because
Island.
usually you would do most of like the day-to-day management of the people.
Yeah.
And she almost like she handles more like the back end later on.
Well, my
you know?
presence reinforced anything she did. They thought when I wasn't there, somehow they were going to step up and, you know.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's an ego thing, you know. She's like,
That's
yeah,
funny.
you're not next in line. Hate to break it to you. Yeah.
So was it like after a few years of owning your business? Like how did it so obviously we started by talking about how you had to figure out how actually to value the work you were doing when you first started. So later in the years, what were some of the challenges that you went through when you did learn more?
I pretty much felt like a failure until we sold that Talking Book World site.
And how far into your business was that?
It was early. It was, I think it was when, let me think. I think it was before Website Forge, before the .bomb. There was this thing called the .bomb.
So I thought this was the start of Website Forge. You're saying you had to
No, this is Magnus. This is before Website Forge. This is when we were just building sites for 10, 20, 50,
well,
80,
what's the difference
$100,000 each.
between the two again? Remind me.
Just we started developing websites. Only big companies could afford them. We sold them to big companies. We had GM sites, government sites, bigger companies.
So that was Microsoft.
That was Microsoft. And then Website Forge was kind of like a product.
Oh, so
Kind
you would
of
have like a
kind of like the word
pre-built.
Shopify with the word Website Forge.
But you would
is
have
more
like a pre-built template for Website Forge.
Right,
For Microsoft,
template-based.
you created
everything's custom.
Okay, that makes
Yeah,
sense.
Yeah.
It's a good way to think of it.
So that was just before the .bomb. Because what happened was I was selling sites like crazy. We you know, just after that, I think we did about $750,000 in web work. And then the .bomb happened, and like all the stocks dropped, and everybody just got scared of technology, and then you couldn't give away a website all of a sudden. And so I was like, well, I only had so many customers, but they were big customers. So I kind of said, well, I'm not going to get caught in that trap again. I'm going to have so many customers, even if I lose half of them, I'll still have revenue. So that's a
What
lesson.
did that
I guess
look
that's
like?
a lesson right there.
What did that look like developing that type of a
Well,
business structure?
It was just when you could do data-driven websites. That's why we were making so much money. So we just took the data-driven concept, instead of having it where your customer could just maintain their own content, we went one more macro step out, and said, they can build the site and universally. So if you have a shopping cart, back then it was like $1 amount in a photo, right? But then it was like, well, what if you buy a digital product? We had to upgrade to be able to have an option: digital product, hard product. What if, what if there's color options? Back then we had to hard code those for every site. Now you just said, okay, what are your options? It was a free form, enumerated is what they would call it, type situation. What if you wanted, when you switch the color of the product? So it actually, nowadays you can do it with AI, but back then you had to have a picture of every single product's color. And then as you select it, you just swapped out the image with JavaScript, right? So but to have one system that could potentially do everything was what the concept is. Nowadays, everybody does that, right? But we were doing it before everybody was. This is before GoDaddy had a builder, right? And so we built that system. A lot of challenges come with it because when you get so many features, the administrative area looks crazy because they're confused. I just want to sell my 3 products and I got all these options, right? So that was something I learned. So the more you can do, the harder it is for a user to do it themselves. So that's why we would build the site and hand over the keys. So we'd sell the site built using Website Forge. So our time was faster, the cost was lower, but we knew how to use our system. We'd hand over the website and say, okay, now here's the only spots you need to edit. You don't have to worry about these buttons. And we could even hide certain things so you didn't have to deal with it. But yet it was still a reusable system that could rapidly develop. Well,
so it sounds like as we talk more, there was a lot of things that you did before it was common.
Mm-hmm.
Why didn't you scale it into like a bigger corporate type of business? Because you could have scaled even the AI stuff. You got into like building AI bots for the reception stuff before anyone else really did. And now you see it everywhere. So why haven't you scaled any of your ideas bigger?
Well, that's a really good question. And you never heard me say this, but what GoDaddy did was you only had like 50 templates to choose from, if that, and you could only throw text in there. That was it. And they sold it for super, 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 super cheap, but sold millions. Mine was a bigger ticket, but it did a way more. It's a much better product. Didn't matter. They sold the junk so cheap, nobody cared if it was on their credit card. And so that's just a lesson in marketing. Do
you wish you had done it different?
Yeah. I missed that boat for sure. That's definitely a shortcoming of mine. Definitely a big fail.
But also, if you had gone the corporate route, and I don't say you stayed with the big ticket, less subscription, you could have scaled and added more people to it, but you also wouldn't have been with family as much. So do you think that kind of went into some of your decision making?
It did.
Because I think that you don't necessarily talk out loud in lay terms about some of your decisions, but you think about it a lot. Like most men, you don't know how to communicate very well. So do you think that could have weighed into your decision at all? Or was it just that you purely missed out and you wish you did it different?
I did make sure that I could be at home and working. So
I don't know that you would have been able to, though, if you had scaled it much bigger.
Right. No, I agree. Here's my thing.
Because there's a trade-off. There's a sacrifice to everything. So your sacrifice is you don't have a GoDaddy website that's corporate, but sometimes you can have it all. I don't actually know how you would. There would be a different sacrifice,
Well, think about this era. There was the era with you guys being young.
Yeah.
I helped. I changed a ton of diapers. I always say that I changed almost as many diapers as your mom, and that's not far off. I mean, I really was hands-on with you guys, right? And then when her dad was sick, Megan bound to me. There was a time that I was with her 90% of the time when she was taking care of when Lisa was taking care of her dad with cancer. So I really did put the parent time in. That's something probably a lot of people don't know, right?
Yeah.
So then I had my hip replacements while you were now old enough to do Taekwondo with me and this and that and the other. And I will say that I spent so much time focusing on recovering my hips that I got my eye off the ball of it. We were making a lot of money, but I didn't shift with the current. The websites were still shifting and I just kind of stayed stagnant. So we lost a lot of business. But to go back and look at the time I spent with you guys, the way it all went, getting healthy. I mean, if I didn't take care of those hips, I did extra PT. I did a lot of things to make sure I could be mobile, right? Move around. Because like the doctor told me, he goes, a lot of people are happy if, they can just bump around and they'd have their wife put their socks in. I'm like, that is not me. Like, I need my hips. So I don't think I would change it for anything. I think it allowed me to have the life I wanted to have. I think raising you guys was one of the most important things. Like I said in the last podcast, I always knew I was going to have a great family. I always knew we were going to have great kids. I always knew your mom was a great mom even before we had kids. And it's not like I talked about it before we had them, just when it went and somehow I just knew but never verbalized it, and then it happened. And you know how I am about focusing on things. That was our focus. And so I don't regret it at all. And I would not take any amount of money in that era if I had to swap it with the time.
That's fair.
Right? It worked out.
I always did wonder that though, why you didn't build a bigger team. But then thinking about it, like when I remember specifically when we went snowmobiling, like I think it was after your second hip replacement. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I got
It
the
was
video.
just me and you. I know. We should insert a little clip in like the
That was
footer.
like
We'll have to send it to
8
you.
or 9 days after my hip replacement without snowmobiling.
And I remember because it was behind on like the telephone trails behind
Power run.
our neighbors' houses. And we went over like a little ditch almost, and then I caught one of my skis on like a tiny tree. But I mean, how old was I? I was young. I might have been somewhere between like 8 and like 10. Does that?
Yeah,
Do you
I think
think
it was
that's
12
fair?
years ago.
Yeah. So it's pretty. I mean, yeah. And then I flipped it sideways, and then I had a head cam, and I'm like, Dad. And you couldn't hear me obviously because you were in front of me. But eventually you looped back around, and I waved you down, and then you pulled. I felt so bad.
And I have
because you were like, you can't hardly walk. You had a cane that you were walking over to, like at least when you were walking normally, because you were fresh out of surgery, and you had to unstick my snowmobile from the freaking tree that I put it in. Yeah. That was really fun though. That's a core memory for me.
I remember walking up and said, "What happened?" Like, I don't know. I didn't mean to hit the tree.
I don't know. It's just like.
Yeah.
But that's something I always remember growing up is I hated it at the time, but now I'm like this now, and I get the same flack from the people around me. I'm mostly just like the boys about filming everything because back then it wasn't normal for people to take so many pictures all the time, and you were like one of the only people with like that little Google Glass thing, and you had the GoPros before it was a thing. You were always on the newest technology, and so we joke about it, but if there ever they come out with like bionic hips or whatever, you'll probably have one.
Yeah.
You'll be the first one jumping on that, and it will just work out. And if it doesn't, you'll get a new one.
You realize I have almost no photos or video when I was a kid.
Well, yeah, because your house flooded.
Right.
And that's incredibly sad, but I'm glad you did that. It was so annoying at the time, and it looked so goofy. And we would go to like Universal, and you would have a head camera on, and it looked ridiculous, and we pretend like we didn't know you. But when we were at SeaWorld specifically, there was that time when you told the dolphin to spin because you saw the trainers do it, but you didn't have a treat, and so it did it, swam away, and it got mad that you didn't give it a fish, or that the trainer didn't give it a fish, and it splashed her. But because you had the head camera, I was right next to the trainer, so both her and I got soaked with salt water, and it's just like me in the corner walking. I'm like spitting out salt water. It was so funny.
That was awesome.
It's ridiculously just like, you can't even describe that story unless you were there, and you were, because you had
water
the camera.
hit her like a tunnel of water, laser focused right in the face, right
So
past
funny.
me, hit the lady that worked there. She was so mad.
Just like little things like that. You're always filming stuff, and I thought it was so ridiculous, but it was just so worth it in the end.
There's so much stuff I haven't even edited that we still have.
Yeah.
I have,
but it was because you were around. If you were, if
Right.
you had built your businesses up the way that a lot of people do, they just chase the money and the momentum, and they want to build something, and they never know when to quit. They tend to miss out on being at home with family. So
we didn't.
It's a different trade-off.
I wouldn't trade in for anything. It was awesome.
We'll have to insert those little videos because they're fun.
For sure.
I will. I will.
It's awesome. Do you have anything else that you want me to bring up or talk about? Do you have anything else you want to add? No, we're not. We're at like an hour.
We're at an hour.
Barely.
Good question.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys can hear it. Can you hear me? Okay, you can hear me. But like, all right. This is getting kind of dancing around this, and like I first off, I love sitting here and listening to you guys' show. It's like really good, and you like, I know at the beginning you're like, how am I gonna ever ask the debanking question, and then you like really weave it in. But like something that I keep on thinking that I've wanted to ask this whole entire time, because we talk about like, I know why, like what gave you the drive to be successful, right? You the way you grew up, and we've dove into that whole entire thing, and I'm thinking like, as we talk about Peter, and we talk about you, and we talk about your kids, and like how they've grown up in like. We talked last week about how you're the top person at your company at 23, and you're grinding out, and you're talking about how Peter's successful. And you think about like that first generation of coming out, like you're grinding and you're making life a certain way. A lot of times, you talk about the Chaldean kids that are like, kicking back on parents' money and stuff like that. what drives you and makes you successful? What, like, I think I know the answer from all the listening and like all that kind of stuff. And it ties into all this stuff that we're talking about right now. What do you think?
What drives me and makes me successful?
Not being a spoiled brat, basically. What made you actually productive?
Yes, that's a great question. And I've thought about this a lot because I look at myself and I look at other people in my same position, and I don't understand how they don't also have the same drive and dedication, or just like the desire to be successful or to have success. And I definitely don't have it figured out, and I am definitely not the top advisor in my company, but I do well considering where I'm at, and I only have room to grow. But I have a really great family, and I always have. I've been surrounded by business owners my whole life, but I think specifically like the way my brain works, I can look at something and I just have we were talking about this last night. I just have a massive desire to learn more about everything, and I hate inefficiency and anything that lacks integrity. So when I see things like, I just try not to be what I don't want to see. But what drives me is really oh my God, there's just so much to this. I actually think about it a lot, but I don't even know where to start. So one of the things that drives me the most is I see all the people who are inefficient, and I don't think it's necessarily 100% their fault. I don't think that they've been given the appropriate like information to make educated decisions. And so that's why I went into the field I went in, specifically with finance, because I feel like I just want to change the world, but I don't really know where to start. Finance is one of the main things that people struggle with. And if that is not a problem, they can focus on other things like building a better business, building better relationships, which all in all, it just makes for a better life. So I guess what drives me is I just want to teach people. I just want to be there. I want to build a good community of people who can rely on me and vice versa. And I see, because I ask a lot of questions to a lot of people and I meet people where they are, but I see that typically if you know better, you do better. So what drives me, what's made me successful is having good parents who put me into really unique situations where I've just had the desire to thrive. I have a lot of goals and passions, and I understand that just sitting on my ass isn't going to get me there. I actually have to do something about it. And I grew up watching a lot of the people around me fail, and I don't think it was 100% their fault. I just think that they listened to other people way too much, and it put them in positions that they actually never should have been in. They should have listened to their gut, and most people don't. They listen to the other people around them, and so they fail. And they fail because they didn't trust their gut. And it's not because they actually can't do it. They just maybe weren't ready for it, or maybe should take a different path because they're not everyone else. There's a million ways to get to the same place. And so I try and teach that to people, like, listen to your intuition, listen to your gut, because nobody knows you better than you. And I just have paved my own path. I've had people throughout my whole journey just tell me I'm doing it wrong, that I should go to college and get a 4-year degree. And I don't agree. And the only way to prove that to other people, because I just would die to tell all the kids who think they have to go to a 4-year degree because their parents did, that's actually not true, because it's not even the same as when your parents went. And so the best way I can do that is by modeling it. So if I want other people to be successful, if I do it myself, I can be that 1 out of 5 people other people want to be. I just care. I just really care about others.
You made a great point. Your aunt, who graduated from MSU, in what was at the time one of the best vet programs in the country, just said that 25% of the veterinary graduates, they spend, I think, 8 years in college in a lot of cases, cannot pass the exams to become a vet. Can you believe that? And she says a lot of doctors' programs are doing the same thing.
Yeah.
So they're so focused on, this soft, politically correct, environment, and the way they're tested. Because now they just want them to look up in a database everything. There's no critical thinking. She says the math is different, the science is different.
Well, they changed the entire curriculum and added in bullshit classes that have nothing to do with what you're going to school with.
Yeah, I mean, so it's
a waste of time and money.
It's a different system. There was a time where that stuff meant something, and it's changing. And to not acknowledge that is just, you're just not paying attention, And the other thing I would say is, You're exactly right. You guys didn't get to go in the store and play and stuff. You got stuff at Christmas, your birthdays. Every now and then you get something, but there wasn't every time you go in the store you get something. I mean, I remember Peter had to pay for most of his shotgun when he was 10. I know you bought all sorts of stuff for yourself. You had a whole freaking army of bunnies that you paid for. like expensive rabbits. I mean, you guys all did. Megan, to this point, I don't remember giving her money hardly ever. She's always been good about paying for
That's
her own
because she's
things.
mommy's daughter.
She actually really requires very little money from us, but that's the thing is I always knew that if you were spoiled, maybe because I saw all those other kids, I just knew it wouldn't be healthy. And also, I was just reminded, my Aunt Kathy, the one that was just called earlier, she goes, oh no, Gloria said it. Gloria said she was with you somewhere when you first started driving, and you called me up, and you were having a hard time finding a place. And she said she could hear me on speakerphones and say, "Figure it out." And I hung up, right? And she goes, "I thought that was so mean. But that is literally what it comes down to is, why are you calling me? You've got, you're safe. There's nothing wrong. You need to find somewhere, figure it out. It's problem solving." And I think that's something your mother and I had done for you, is just said, figure it out. I mean, I'd rather it be very, 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 very difficult with us, so you knew what the world is going to do to you.
Yeah, but did I answer your question well enough, or?
Oh yeah, it was good.
I know it was kind of all over the place, but like I think about it a lot, and we do talk about it a lot because
Oh, yeah.
we're like, how are we as kids different? And it's so multifaceted. But really at the root of it, I think it's like a lot of who we're with and just being self-aware. Self-awareness goes a long way.
I think the other factor is one thing we all have in common, and you were definitely learned this from us. We do not really care about other people's opinions. You won't shame us. You're
I
not
think
going to
that's
make us
so
feel bad.
huge, though, because most people make very shitty decisions because other people told them they had to,
Right.
or they jump into things that, again, they're just not ready for. I cannot tell you how many times someone told me a path would be better for me, and I just smile and nod, and I'm like, they might not like me or think of me very well if I don't do what they say, but also it's my life. And really at the root of it, not even meaning to, people are pretty selfish individuals. And sometimes they'll actually pigeonhole you into something that isn't good for you because maybe they failed at it. And so then they can watch you fail at it. And subconsciously, it makes them feel better. I don't think everyone does it super consciously. I think genuinely most people have other people's best interests at heart. But if they're not self-aware of the way they're coming across when giving other people advice.
Actually, the problem is people give out advice about things they know nothing about.
Exactly.
If you go online, for instance,
or that they flunk at themselves, like, oh, you should do this. Oh, but I couldn't. Like, okay, I'm not taking advice from someone who actually couldn't do it themselves.
Take any expertise. When we started screen printing, you'd go on these groups and you'd have all these people giving the same bad advice. So now when people talk about screen printing or something, I'm like, the first thing you do is ignore those people in the groups because they have no clue what they're talking about. They're not successful. Like there's a specific printer I'm talking about. Something doesn't print well. It's humidity. And I'm sitting here going, we're in a barn. We had no air conditioning or heating for like 3 years in much harsher conditions, and we were printing just fine. So I'm like, yeah, that's not it, And they'd all flame me because I was just honest with them. I'm like, nobody's critically thinking. You're all repeating the same information. And whether it's online in the current time or back in the day, everybody just says the same shit. There's so many things that have been debunked, from when we were kids or even now. It's just not true. People don't take the time to actually find the answer.
There's two things I can add to that. One, odds are if somebody's posting on Facebook all the time about the way something should work,
they're not making any money.
they're not
right.
busy, and there's a reason.
Right.
Like there's a reason. And the other thing is everyone always has an opinion. And then I just go back on, okay, there's also a million ways to get to the same place. So sure, that might work for you, but it's not going to work for everyone.
Right.
And that's what like mainstream like schools are like. And that's why I'm homeschooling, because I did not do, like I did fine in the school systems, but I could have done a lot better. It really squashed my desire to learn anything because I couldn't apply it to real life. And that's the best way I learn. And in fact, the way most people learn. And also, it's just not fair to put kids in a chair for 7 hours a day and expect them to come out.
Well,
unless you're a genius.
But you also saw those things happening in real time with the businesses. So you already saw life happening at a much younger age. Things that
True.
You're growing up thinking one day will be you. It was
True,
your environment.
But the school system was actually set up by people who wanted to create a bunch of employees, which is why I don't think I did very well in it, because I'm just not. And it's cost me jobs, and I have to be okay with that, because at the root of it, there is a silver lining to everything. There's a reason it didn't work out. I believe in God. God's plan is better than mine. And sometimes I might not agree in the moment, but long term, as long as you see that there's probably a reason things are happening a certain way, it's especially when you believe in God, it can be really easy to just trust. And it's hard at first, but over time and time again, he proves that, hey, you know, this opportunity is actually better. And sometimes I don't listen, and then it has to end poorly. And it feels really, really sucky, but it's why I'm sitting in a chair right now, spending my Thursday evening having a podcast with my dad. Super fun.
It was awesome.
Like,
I'm so proud of you.
I just don't believe in listening to most people, and just take everything people say to you with a grain of salt and apply it to you, because not everything does apply. You have to think of where their perspective is actually coming from. And that's why, like,
You just have to be confident and do things that make sense. Is that simple?
Confidence, it can be faked, but it often only comes after success. So if you're just confident all the time, like there are times I'm actually literally shaking in my boots, and you wouldn't know because I've trained to put on a good face, because nobody will trust someone who's literally shaking. But it doesn't mean I'm confident in the moment.
That's true.
All I got to do is trust the process, and you never grow in comfort. So if you're comfortable in your life right now, and you have been for years, and it feels lacking, there's a reason. You should probably go get out of your comfort zone.
One of my mentors was named Craig Keevy back when I worked at Cosworth or ICI. And he said, if you're not on the edge, feeling like you're going to fall off the edge, then you're not pushing yourself. He always said that. And he was 100% right. And I think of that all the time. Like you said, it's the same concept, just in different words.
So scary. It can be so scary sometimes, but that's where the biggest growth comes from.
Yeah.
There's always rainbow for a rainbow.
And you get tougher. I mean, you get over time. Like, I've had people tell me, like, how are you not, losing your mind right now? It just, over time, you just get more and more used to the stress. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's fun. A lot of good stuff. Any other questions?
No. That's probably a good point to stop. Got to do the sign off, though.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us on The Melly Show. Peace.